Tojaniya Idri Tajam Govarega Kunukumia Kaija Jividija Anabekata Ubata Piti Kune the Mungeko Yesen Hayami Saravari Richonli Pure Bibavi Tini Chiane Indri Tajam Napa Celebiro Pure Mababe.
On Friday, Sayadaw talked about the seventh factor conducive to the sharpening of the controlling faculties. That was the state of mind that does not in any way entertain any sort of considerate attachment for one's body or life in the process of meditation. Tonight's talk will deal with the remaining two factors.
Shikumya Jangara Tatasa Abiboya Nikamina Tata Todo Gune the Mengamagwepene Sonza Atoya Night Upanupana Doka Malwamakin that in the absent people lare Gusinya Makanda Amumyogo Nikamina Keke Dwilu Don't so do other Kodisa Tayama Lumia do Nikama Tatu Uri adaption Biboya Lamuye Tambadi Pipi Zomzia made choosing for you seeing you Lamu Bayam Sarawani. The Ashirum Kamha people like that wouldn't know Nikama Datu Net Uri Atan Payam and Lisovara.
The eighth factor takes place when the seventh one is in operation. When one is able to meditate in a very heroic and courageous manner without entertaining any sort of considerate attachment to one's body or life, then one will be able to accomplish the development of the various stages of insight, because one has been able to overpower the timid or cowardly mind through courageous effort, through liberating energy that is based on the state of mind which does not entertain any sort of considerate attachment to the body or to life.
Tia Atude Kama You Teto Deta Niara Lauto Machanda Usura Nalia Vare Who Tanaila Taineka Taibi Majagame Sego Kuyo Namolo Chodibi on Niara Patamazo say Chinja Lare Pong Bemugaza Bore Ayongo Melodama Naye ကြောင်းကြစိုက်ရတော့အဲ့ဒီကြောင်းကြစိုက်မှုကြောင့်ဒီကုလုံးဟာလည်းပဲပူပြီးတော့မခံစားမှုတွေလည်းပဲစပြီးတော့ဖြစ်တယ်ကိုယ်ဆင်းရဲတော့စိတ်ဆင်းရဲတော့ကိုယ်လည်းဆင်းရဲပြီကိုယ်ဆင်းရဲပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲဒီဆင်းရဲတံကိုသိမခံနိုင်ရင်ဆင်းရဲစိတ်ဆင်းရဲကတစ်ခါထပ်ဖြစ်ပြန်ရင်ကိုယ်ဆင်းရဲစိတ်ဆင်းရဲရောဒါလည်းဓမ္မတွေ့ကြုံနေရတာကိုဓမ္မကတော့ကိုယ်ဆင်းရဲကိုရည်ရွယ်ပြီးတော့ပြောပါတယ်ဓမ္မသိမခံနိုင်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေမှာဆိုရင်နည်းနည်းလေးမခံစားမှုဖြစ်တာနဲ့ရွှေ့လိုက်ပြင်းလိုက်ပြောင်းလိုက်ဆိုရင်အရိယဘုကမခိုင်တော့အရိယဘုမခိုင်လို့ရှိရင်ငြိမ်ငြိမ်ထိုင်မှစိတ်ကငြိမ်တာပထမဆုံးကိုငြိမ်မှစိတ်ကငြိမ်တာကိုမငြိမ်စိတ်မငြိမ်ဒီတော့ကိုငြိမ်ငြိမ်ထိုင်ရေးအတွက်ပထမဆုံးကိုယ်တွေကမခံစားမှုတွေဖြစ်ပေါ်လာရင်အတတ်နိုင်ဆုံးသိခံစိတ်ထားပြီးတော့မှတ်ရတယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေသိစေခြင်းလို့ဒီရှိခုမြောက်ဣန္ဒြေထက်ကြောင်းကျန်ငံများမှာပြရပါတယ်
နောက်ဆုံးမှာလေဒီတိခံလေးပါလေပြတော့တိခံဆုံးပါလေပါပါ
တိခံပြီးတော့ရှုမှတ်ဖို့
All of you here must be pretty familiar with unpleasant sensations in your body. In an hour of sitting, you have to do a lot of work. You have to try to keep your mind on your primary object throughout the whole hour as best as you can. You have to keep the mind well restrained. You have to control the mind. And that can be very threatening to the mind, which is so used to being so wild. It becomes quite a chore. It becomes rather straining. And that strain of mind, that resistance to being controlled is one sort of suffering. And that resistance of mind can also produce its effect in the body. Because the mind is resistant, then the body will react also. You could find tension in your body, you could find heat in your body, and within a short time, various unpleasant and painful sensations would start to occur. With a mind that is resistant to being controlled, and with this unpleasant and painful sensation arising, you have quite a baby in your hands. You get uptight and you look at the pain and you can't really exercise any patience at all in wanting to look at what's happening in the pain, to want to look at the true nature of the pain. You're already so busy trying to control that mind which is resisting all the time. And on top of that, there is this lousy pain that is coming up and distracting your attention. You get wild and you get a lot of aversion, a lot of anger. So you get a double take. You have the first suffering of resistance in your mind, resistance to being controlled. And then you have the second sort of suffering, the bodily suffering. And on top of that, you have mental suffering as a result of the physical suffering. So this 8-factor conducive to the sharpening of the controlling faculties implies that one should exercise the greatest degree of patience and perseverance in dealing with pain, especially bodily pain.
အဲ့ဒီလိုခါမျိုးမှာတိကစိတ်မရှိတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်များအဲ့ဒီမခံစားဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတဲ့မခံစားမှုပေါ်မှာပဋိကခေါ်တဲ့ဒေါသဖြစ်တယ်လို့ပေါ့လေငါအရင်ကကောင်းနေတာပဲအခုတော့ဆိုးလာပြီဆိုပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေဒေါသဖြစ်တယ်လို့အဆိုးတွေတွေ့တော့အကောင်းမျှော်တဲ့အနေနဲ့ပေါ့လေပြင်လိုက်ရင်တော့တက်တာမှာပဲဆိုပြီးတော့ဒီတက်တာမှုလိုလားပြီးတော့ခဏခဏရွှေ့ပြင်ပြောင်းနေတာ哦ဒေါသလည်းဖြစ်သေးတယ်လောဘလည်းဖြစ်သေးတယ်အဲ့ဒီခိုက်တာမှာမခံစားမှုကအစပေါ်ရလေးတွေမမှတ်ဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်မောဟလည်းဖြစ်သေးတာပဲအများကြီးပဲဖြစ်သွားတာပဲဓမ္မအဲ့လောဘဒေါသမောဟတွေကိလေသာတွေဝင်သွားတော့တာပဲဓမ္မအဲ့ဒါအရင်စစ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်တိမခံနိုင်လို့ဒီလိုဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေဓမ္မသွားပြီးတော့ခောက်ကျက်ကြပါတယ်
If we are not prepared to confront pain in a very patient way, there are lots of other things that can happen. Such an attitude can trigger off a host of kilesas, a host of mental defilements. You begin to think, oh, I was so comfortable just now, it was so nice and quiet, and now suddenly this lousy pain has to come and disturb me. I wish I could get back my old comfort. And there you are, that's greed, that's desire. Wanting the pain to go away, wanting to experience a good feeling, a comfortable posture. Not to mention the anger that comes out of not wanting to have the pain there at all. And on top of that, in the face of anger and greed, in the absence of patience, one's mind becomes confused and deluded. There is no clear seeing. There is delusion because you're not able to see through the true nature of pain. Then we act on our desires and our thoughts and our opinions. We feel that this pain is such a thorn in our practice. Maybe if I shift a little bit, I can get back my good comfort, my comfortable position, and then maybe I can concentrate better on my rising and falling. And you shift, and after a while, another place, there is another pain that arises, and you shift again. And you keep on shifting, which is actually a great hindrance to the practice of meditation. In order to achieve calmness and tranquility of mind, we must work first with the body. We must first ensure that the body is still and calm, and then only can there be a solid foundation for calmness and tranquility of mind to occur. So these are not the only kilesas, not the only mental defilements that occur. There are many others that can come in the wake of greed, hatred, and delusion, all on account of impatience when having to deal with pain.
အဲ့ဒီလိုတိခါစိတ်မထားဘဲနဲ့ခဏခဏရွှေ့ပြင်ပြောင်းနေတော့တကယ်ရှုတည်ရမယ်ဒုက္ခဝေဒနာဟာပြုပြင်မှုအရိယဘုကဖုံးလွှမ်းသွားတော့ဒုက္ခဝေဒနာရဲ့လို့မသိတော့ဘူးဒီပေါ်မှာညာမဖြစ်တော့ဘူးအဲ့ဒီလိုကိုညာမဖြစ်တာကိုပဲကျမ်းဂန်များမှာဒုက္ခကိုအရိယပဋ္ဌာကဖုံးတယ်လို့ဒီလိုဆိုပြပါတယ်ဖ သူကဖုံးထားတော့ညာမလာတော့ဘူးပေါ့ဒါဖြစ်ရမှာသိပါပါကြတယ်
The constant and continual shifting of your limbs, of your posture, it's very effective in concealing the true nature of pain. Pain has arisen in your field of consciousness, in your field of awareness. It is a very predominant object. But you choose not to look at it. It is there under your nose. If you look at it, you can penetrate into its true nature. But no, you're not patient enough. You're not persevering enough. And so you shift. Therefore, in the texts, it is said that the changing postures conceal the true nature of pain, of suffering.
ဒီလိုဒုက္ခဝေဒနာလေးတွေကိုယ်တည်းကဖြစ်လာတာကိုရှုသိနေရတာကောင်းတာပဲပြီးတော့ဒီလိုရိုးရိုးဖြစ်နေကြဒုက္ခဝေဒနာလေးတွေကလည်းပဲအခုမှဖြစ်တာမဟုတ်ပါဘူးကိုယ်ဘဝတစ်လျှောက်မှာဒါတွေဖြစ်ခဲ့ပါပြီဒါပေမဲ့လို့မိမိတို့ရဲ့စိတ်ကအခြားအာယုန်ဒီပေါ်မှာရောက်နေတော့ကိုယ်တည်းကမခံတာမှုကိုအာယုံမပြုတ်မိတော့တတိမပြုတ်မိတော့မသိဘူးအခုကိုယ်ရဲ့စိတ်ရောက်လာတဲ့အခါကျတော့ကိုယ်ရဲ့ကအမှန်ရှိနေတဲ့ဟာလေးတွေသိလာတာပဲမနာကောင်းတာပဲဒီလိုအသီးလေးတွေဖြစ်တာ
In fact, it's a really very wonderful opportunity for you to discover the true nature of pain when it does arise in front of your eyes, under your nose. Pain is not something very strange to us. It is something which we are very, very familiar with. We have been living with pain ever since we were born in this planet. It's been with us throughout our lives. And why are you running away from it? If it arises, look at it as a very rare and precious opportunity so that you can really understand pain for what it really is.
Ko sei wen sa de a lou ko စူးစိုက်ပြီးတော့လုပ်နေတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာလည်းပဲရိုးမခံစားမှုဝေဒနာလေးတွေကဖြစ်နေတာပဲဒါပေမဲ့လို့ဟိုမှာစိတ်ကအပြည့်စိုက်ထားတော့အဲ့ဒီဝေဒနာစီစိတ်ရောက်သွားစိတ်ကမရောက်တော့မသိဘူးဆိုကြပါစို့ချစ်ထိုးဝါဒနာပါတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာဟိုမှာသူများအကြက်ကင်မှုသူများရဲ့အကြက်ကင်တဲ့ဟာကိုလည်းပဲဘယ်လိုရှောင်ဝတင်ရမယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေအကွက်ကြည့်နေတော့စိတ်ကဟိုမှာအပြည့်ရောက်နေတယ်အပြည့်ရောက်နေတော့ဒီမှာအကြာကြီးထိုင်တာညောင်းမှလည်းမသိဘူးပူမှလည်းမသိဘူးရားမှလည်းမသိဘူးရားလည်းပဲကုတ်ဖို့လည်းအချိန်မရဘူးအဲ့ဒါလိုကိစ္စတွေတောင်မှဟိုတဲ့စိတ်ဝင်စားပြီးတော့နေတဲ့အခါပေါ့လေဝေဒနာတွေပေါ်ဝင်မယ်လို့တိခဏနိုင်စိတ်ရှိရင်ဒါကစိတ်မြင့်မြတ်အောင်အတိညာနေလည်းပွားအောင်ကြိုးစားတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာတားပြီးတော့ကိုတိခဏစိတ်ရှိရပါ
It is possible at times when you're not meditating to exercise patience with regard to painful sensations, especially when you are concentrated in something that you are terribly interested in. When you're absorbed in a favorite hobby or a subject that you have a particular interest in, you are oblivious to what you're doing, you're oblivious to the unpleasant sensations that may arise in your body. Take, for instance, a person who is really very interested in playing chess. You're sitting on your chair and looking very intently on your chessboard. And your opponent has just made a very fantastic move, and there's a check. And you got to think hard to get out of that precarious situation. And in the meantime, you've been sitting for 2 hours on the chair. You've got no time to scratch, even if you're itchy, and you don't feel the heat and the discomfort of having sat in such a cramped position for 2 hours. You don't feel the hardness of your chair. You don't feel the discomfort. Your mind is totally lost in thought, in trying to work out the strategy to get out of the fix that you're finding yourself in. If indeed patience can be exercised on such occasions for the development of wisdom, of knowledge, worldly knowledge, it is even more imperative that perseverance and the utmost patience should be cultivated in the practice of meditation, which is the process of cultivating and developing a much more higher level of wisdom.
ဒီလိုကိုယ်တည်းကမခန္ဓာဘူးလေးတွေသိလာတာကိုယ်ထဲမှာစိတ်အဆုစီးများလို့သိလာတာပဲနည်းနည်းအဆုစီးများရင်နည်းနည်းသိလာတာများများအဆုစီးစားများရင်များများသိလာတာတော်တော်ကြီးကိုစိတ်ဆုစီးမိပြီဆိုရင်ဝေဒနာလေးနည်းနည်းလေးမပြင်းထန်တဲ့ဟာလေးကိုပဲတကယ်ပြင်းပြင်းထန်ထန်ကြီးလို့ထင်ရလောက်အောင်ပြီးပြီးသားသားတွေ့လာတာဥမာအပြင်ဘာနဲ့တူလဲဆိုရင်မျက်စိမှုံတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာမျက်မှန်မပါမဲနဲ့ကြည့်ရင်မြင်ရတဲ့အရာလေးတွေကမှုံမှားမှားမသေးခွဲဘူးမျက်မှန်တက်ကြည့်တဲ့ခါကျတော့ပြီးသားလာဒီလိုပြီးသားလာတာဟာငကိုမြင်ခွင့်ရထူးထူးခြားခြားကြီးလာတာမဟုတ်ပါဘူးမျက်မှန်ပါဝါကြောင့်ပြီးသားသားတွေ့လာတဲ့သဘောပါတဖာMicrosoft တို့ Magnify တို့နဲ့ကြည့်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ချက်ပြီးတော့သိလာတာသိထူးကြတာစိတ်အားလေးတွေရှိလာပြီဆိုရင်နည်းနည်းမခန္ဓာဘူးလေးကကြီးကြီးကျယ်ထင်ပြီးတော့ဒီလိုပဲဒီမခံရင်ပြောင်းလိုက်တဲ့အခါဝေဒနာလေးပျောက်တော့ဝေဒနာလေးမရှိဘူးသူကတော့ဒီတော့တရားကြောင့်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဝေဒနာဆိုတာသိရှိတယ်ခုနမျက်မှန်ချုပ်လိုက်တဲ့အခါကျတော့မှုံမှွားမှွား Magnify Microscope နဲ့မကြည့်ဘဲနဲ့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဘာမြင်တော့ဘာပြီးသားတော့အဲ့လိုဖြစ်သွားတာဒီတော့တရားတကူဟာငကူကမပြီးသားတဲ့ဟာလေးပြီးပြီးသားတာတွေ့လာတာကိုယ့်အတွက်ကောင်းတယ်ဆိုတာဝေဒနာတွေမှတ်နေရတာကောင်းတယ်ဆိုတာဒီလိုကိုယ့်ကိုအားပေးပြီးတော့ဆွဲရှိရတယ်
The degree of penetration into the true nature of phenomena as they occur depends very much on the level of concentration, of collectedness of mind that you have managed to develop. The more one-pointed, collected your mind is, the deeper can you understand whatever that is arising. This is particularly true, this is especially apparent when one is being aware of painful sensations. Sometimes, when we are not fully aware of what's happening in our body, when concentration is not well developed, we do not really feel the discomfort that is always present in our body. But when concentration begins to deepen, even the slightest discomfort may appear to be quite exaggerated. The slightest pain, the slightest discomfort in any area becomes enlarged, becomes magnified, becomes very clear if your concentration is deep and strong. This is very much like the case of a person who has defective eyes. Without glasses, his view would be very blurred and indistinct. It would be rather hazy and blurry and indistinct. He can't really make out what's happening in front of him. But if he puts on his glasses, lo, he will see that everything is so bright and clear and distinct. It is not that the objects, the visual objects in front of him have suddenly changed so that he can see clearly, but it was due to the power of his glasses. It's the same with the uncomfortable feelings, unpleasant sensations that are happening in your body. They are there most of the time, but you're not aware of them because you haven't put on your glasses of concentration. If there is enough power in your glasses, then you will be able to see very, very lucidly the true nature of painful sensations. Again, if we try to look with our naked eyes at a biological specimen, you don't see very much. It's just a mass, perhaps, of liquid in front of you. But if you put a sample under the microscope and you look through the powerful lens of the microscope, then you begin to see many things happening there. Many things are dancing and moving, and it becomes so highly magnified that it becomes really fantastic. It's really very interesting.
Swayမရှိတဲ့တတ္တိမရှိတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်များတော့တစ်ခါတော့ဒုက္ခဝေဒနာတွေ့ပြီးပြီဆိုရင်ပြန်ထိုင်ဖို့ဝေးလို့ထိုင်ရမယ့်နေရာတော့မှပြန်မကြည့်ကြအောင်ဖြစ်သွားတယ်ဒီလောက်အထိစိတ်ကုန်သွားတယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုတော့မဖြစ်စေရဘူးတိခံစိတ်ရှိပြီးတော့ဇွဲမွေးရမယ်ဝိရိယမွေးရမယ်တတ္တိမွေးရမယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုတတ္တိမွေးတယ်ဆိုတာဒီဝေဒနာကိုစိုက်ပြီးတော့ရှုဖို့ပါပဲစိုက်ရှုတိုင်းအလွန်နာလာလို့ရှိရင်နည်းနည်းလေးလျှော့ရှုတစ်ခါတစ်ခါစိုက်ရှုလိုက်တစ်ခါတစ်ခါလျှော့ရှုလိုက်အဲ့ဒါလို၃-၄ခါလုံးလုံးမှမသက်သာဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူ့လွှတ်ထားပြီးတော့ကိုယ်မှတ်မြဲဖောင်းပိန်မှုအစရှိတဲ့အာယုံကိုခါတိုင်းဆုစိုက်နေကြတယ်ပို့ပြီးတော့ဆုစိုက်ရတယ်စိုက်မှလိုက်လွှဲမှလိုက်လျှော့မှလိုက်လွှဲမှလိုက်ပါဒီလိုလုပ်ရတယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုလုပ်ပါများလို့ရှိရင်တိက္ခာစိတ်တွေလည်းပဲအားကောင်းလာတယ်ရင့်လာမယ်ဇွဲလည်းပဲပို့ပြီးတော့အားရှိလာမယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုဇွဲမွေးပေးရပါတယ်
If you're able to put on your glasses in your meditation, glasses of concentration, you will be surprised to see the variety of changes that are taking place in what would appear to be a stagnant and an interesting spot of pain. The deeper the mind gets concentrated, the deeper your understanding of the pain becomes, the clearer you're able to see how these painful sensations are continually in a state of change and flux, from one sensation to another, and how they diminish and how they become stronger, and how they fluctuate in intensity, and how they dance. It becomes really very interesting. You can be very enthralled by watching this dance of pain. And as your concentration and mindfulness deepens and sharpens, at times, just at times when the show becomes very interesting, there is a sudden and unexpected end to it. It's as though the curtain is dropped and the show comes to an end. And the pain just disappears miraculously. If a person is unable to arouse enough courage or energy to look at pain, then you're not going to get very much out of that wonderful opportunity. We have to try to develop that courage of mind, that heroic and courageous effort to look into pain. We have to try to overcome our timidity and cowardness when confronting pain. You must learn not to chicken out of the situation. Go right in. And you might want to use a technique in dealing with pain. Or rather, it's a 3-step technique where you first try to be very persevering and persistent in noting the pain. It has arisen, and you go straight at it, look at it, and try to penetrate through it, and go underneath it so that you don't react to it. You're able to see pain as pain. You may try very hard, but inevitably, because pain has the function of tiring your mind, you become fatigued. It becomes difficult to continue to maintain that degree of concentration and mindfulness. You have to beat a safe retreat, in which case you go on to the second step, which is to play with the pain. You look at the pain, you go into it, then you relax a bit. You sort of settle back and loosen your grip on it. You loosen your intensity of mindfulness and concentration on it, but still keeping your attention on the pain. That is a time for you to give your mind a rest. And then you go in again, this time as closely as you can get. And if you find that it still isn't successful, then you beat a retreat, settle back and relax a bit, but still keeping your attention on the pain. So you do this, going in and out, back and forth, maybe 2-3 times. And if you find that it doesn't work, then it's time for a graceful surrender. That does not mean shifting position yet. It just means shifting the position of your mindfulness from the pain to your primary object, whatever it may be. In other words, this means completely ignoring the pain and putting your whole attention to the rise and fall of the abdomen or whatever the primary object that you are using.
Vedana ကြုံရတဲ့ညာဘက်ရောက်လာလို့ရှိရင်တရားကြောင့်ပေါ်တဲ့ဝေဒနာတွေမဟုတ်ဘူးငကိုငုံနေတဲ့ငယ်ငယ်ကဝေဒနာတွေတောင်မှပြန်ပြီးတော့ပေါ်လာတတ်တယ်ဆရာဝန်တွေကုလို့မပြောက်နိုင်တဲ့ယောဂါတွေလည်းပဲဒီခါမှာပြင်းပြပြပြကြီးပြန်ပေါ်တတ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုပေါ်တာဟာကိုယ့်အတွက်တော့ကံကောင်းတယ်လို့ဆိုရမှာပဲဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့ဇွဲရှိရှိနဲ့အားထုတ်ရဲ့အဲ့ဒီဝေဒနာတွေကိုကြော်လွန်ပြီးတော့စိမစားပဲနေတော့မှယောဂါတွေပျောက်သွားတာရှိတယ်
So we see that it is very important to try to cultivate this courageous and heroic effort. We must try to overcome any timidity of the mind, any cowardly attitudes of the mind. It is only if you have that strength of mind of a hero that you will be able to overcome pain by understanding it for what it really is. In the process of meditation, pain can arise very naturally, in the sense that discomfort has always been there, but because we have not been attentive enough, we do not see the discomfort for what it really is. As was mentioned earlier, to the development of concentration, even the slightest discomfort becomes magnified to an exaggerated degree. Pain can also arise on account of an ailment or illness or a wound that we may have suffered from ages ago, even when you were a little kid. You may have sprained a part of your body or something like that, a muscle pull, and it's been there. There's been a chronic ailment following you all the time and you've not been able to get rid of it. It may have been gone for quite some time, but when you're doing an intensive retreat, there is a very strong tendency for such old, veteran pains to arise. At other times it may be something else. It may be an illness which you suffered from recently and you've been trying to cure it. You've been trying various medicines, you've been trying various therapies, but you have been unsuccessful. And in your meditation, these physical sensations may arise in a very intense way, in a very unbearable way. For such people, we can perhaps say that they are very lucky, very fortunate. Lady luck is on their side. There have been many cases of people who have had this recurrence of old ailments and illnesses and pains and chronic ailments, and by utilizing the sort of heroic and courageous effort, by depending on persistent perseverance and patience, they have been able to overcome such painful sensations. They have been able to transcend them, for good without taking a single drop of medicine.
အဲ့ဒီတရားထုတ်လို့ယောဂပြောက်သွားတဲ့အကြောင်းအရာတွေထဲမှာတစ်ခုတစ်ခုလောက်ဘုန်းကြီးကထုတ်ပြပါရစေအဲ့ဒီတဲကအစာအိမ်ယောဂရှိတဲ့တက္ကကြီးတယောက်နှစ်ပေါင်း20ကျော်လောက်တည်းကသူ့မှာအစာယောဂရှိခဲ့ပါတယ်လွန်ခဲ့တဲ့15နှစ်လောက်ကဆရာဝန်သွားပြီးတော့ပြတော့ဆရာဝန်ကခွဲရမယ်လို့အကြံပေးပါတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လို့သူကခွဲတုန်းခါမှာတည်သွားလို့ရှိရင်ဘယ်နဲ့လုံမလဲဆိုပြီးတော့ကြောက်တာနဲ့မခွဲခင်ရိတ်တာလာပြီးတော့အားထုတ်ပါတယ်ရိတ်တာလာအားထုတ်တဲ့ခါကျတော့စောစောပိုင်းကတော့ရိုးရိုးဝေဒနာတွေပေါ်ပြီးတော့နောက်ဆရာညာဝေဒနာပေါ်တဲ့ညာရောက်တဲ့ခါကျတော့သူယောဂတစ်ခါတည်းဓမ္မအကြီးကျယ်ထလာတာပဲမနေနိုင်မထိုင်နိုင်အောင်ဖြစ်လာတာပဲအဲ့ဒါလို့မနေနိုင်မထိုင်နိုင်ဖြစ်လာတဲ့အခါမှာဘုန်းကြီးကိုလာပြီးတော့ရှောက်လို့ဘုန်းကြီးကအကြံပေးတဲ့အတိုင်းပေါ့လေဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့အားထုတ်တဲ့အခါမှာယောဂတွေပျောက်သွားပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီပျောက်ပုံလေးတော့နောက်ဆက်ပြောပါမယ်
Sayadaw would like to relate a couple of cases regarding this almost miraculous recovery from chronic ailments or old childhood sprains and so forth. About 15 years ago, there was a person who had been suffering from gastric troubles for many years, for over 20 years. One day he went to see his doctor. He got a checkup and was told that it was necessary for him to undergo a surgical operation. Possibly he had a tumor or something. He was quite scared. He was afraid that the operation might be unsuccessful. He was afraid that he might die. So instead of going for the operation, and so before he went for the operation, he decided to play it safe. Maybe I better go meditate in the yekta first. And he came to the yekta, to the meditation center, and took up meditation under Sayadaw's guidance. Very shortly, he began to experience a lot of pain. But these were not very intense pain. They were just the beginning. And he was able to see through them. But as he made progress in his meditation, and when he reached that level of insight connected with pain, he had a severe attack that was unbearable and really torturous. Of course, he was suffering a great deal. He came up to the Sayadaw and started to relate his difficulties and his great suffering, his inability to handle this unbearable pain. However, Sayadaw encouraged him, and very willingly he took the Sayadaw's suggestions and instructions and continued his practice. Because he had great valor and courage in facing pain, in confronting pain, he was able to overcome it, to transcend. so that eventually he was totally cured from the chronic gastric troubles that he had suffered for so many years. And he need no longer have to take the operation.
အဲ့ဒါလို့ဘုန်းကြီးလာပြီးတော့လျှောက်တဲ့အခါဘုန်းကြီးကသူနဲ့မဆန့်ကျင်ပါဘူးပြန်ရင်ပြန်နိုင်ပါတယ်လို့ခွင့်ပြုပါတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လို့တမျိုးလောက်ကြည့်ကြသေးတာပေါ့လို့စတုပ္ပတုသွားရှာလို့စတုပ္ပတုသွားရှာပြီးတော့နည်းနည်းစကြည့်သေးတာပေါ့လို့ချက်ချင်းစတုပ္ပတုရှာပြီးတော့2 နာရီကြာစတုပ္ပတုလက်ဖက်ရည်စုံလေးနဲ့2စွန်းလောက်ဆာပြီးတော့သူအားထုတ်တာသူကလည်းပဲစွန်းစားအားထုတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုတော့ဒီယောဂနဲ့တည်ရင်လည်းတည်မှာပဲအဲ့တော့မတည်ခင်လေးတော့မတော်လို့အပယ်ကျသွားလို့ရှိရင်ဆိုးရကြီးရဲ့ဒီယောဂဝေဒနာကတော့ဘာမှမဖြစ်တော့ဘူးဆိုပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေစတုပ္ပတုစားရင်ကသူဇွဲနဲ့အားထုတ်တာတခါဝေဒနာနိုင်လိုက်တခါသူကနိုင်လိုက်ပေါ့လေနောက်တော့တဖြည်းဖြည်းစိတ်ကထက်တန်လာတယ်ဝိရိယကောင်းလာဇွဲကအားရှိလာတယ်မှတ်ပါပြတဲ့အခါကျတော့ဘက်ကနာတယ်ဆိုတဲ့အနေမျိုးမဟုတ်တော့ဘူးနာတာနဲ့တိတာဒါပဲရှိတော့တယ်စိုက်ပြီးတော့မှတ်နေတော့ကြက်တိုက်တိနေတာကိုတိနေတော့တမာရီအားလည်းကောင်းလာပြီညာအားလည်းကောင်းလာပြီမှတ်လေးပို့ပြီးတော့ခုနခွဲရမယ့်နေရာကတိတ်တီးပြီးတော့ဗလီမာကြည့်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်လာလေနာတယ်သူကကောင်းလဲကောင်းတယ်မှတ်နေရတာတကူလုံးလည်းခါတဲ့ပူရှိန်ပြီးတော့ချွေးတွေလည်းကျလာတာပဲနောက်ဆုံးအစင်းရောက်တဲ့အခါကျတော့ဖောင်းလဲဆိုခါတဲ့ကွဲသွားတာအတန်တော်မြည်သေးတယ်တဲ့သူယောဂအလုံးကြီးပေါက်ပြီးတော့ပြည်တွေထွက်လာပါပြီဆိုပြီးတော့သူကလက်နဲ့တောင်စီးခံနိုင်သေးတယ်အဲ့ဒီမှာရှင်းနဲ့အခိုးတွေထွက်ချွေးတွေထွက်ပြီးတော့ဒါကလည်းသူဝတ်ထားတဲ့အဝတ်လည်းပဲချွေးတွေနဲ့ဆူရွှဲပြီးတော့သွားတာပိုက်စားကြည့်တဲ့အခါကျတော့ခုနအလုံးကြီးပါရှိတော့တယ်နေရထိုင်ရတာကလည်းချမ်းသာသွားတာပဲ
When he first came to the Sayadaw to relate his encounter with this unbearable and torturous pain, Sayadaw, of course, was very sympathetic. Well, if you feel that it's really bad and you want to go back and see a doctor, well, be welcome to do so. However, why don't you try for a few more days? Go look for a bottle of Chatumadu and take a teaspoon or two every 2 hours and continue with your practice and see. Well, he thought and he said, well, if I go back now and I go for the operation, there's no guarantee that I'm going to pull through it. And I might as well give it a try. So he looked for a bottle of Chatumadu. He followed the Sayadaw's instructions and really tried very hard. Every 2 hours he would take a teaspoon or two of Chatumadu and was very persistent, very courageous in his efforts. At times, of course, the pain got the better of him. At times, he overcame the pain. It was a big struggle. It was a long battle. There were losses on both sides. But finally, it was a long struggle, but he was a hero, he was a great warrior. He fought to the end. He fought, and at one time, the pain was so excruciating, so unbearable, that his whole body shook and he was perspiring. His whole body became wet with perspiration. His clothes were soaked in sweat. And he was still fighting. He was looking at the pain. And the tumor in his stomach, in his belly, was giving a lot of trouble. Very painful, getting harder and getting more and more tight and constricted. And he was looking at it. And suddenly, the stomach disappeared. There was nothing, it was just the consciousness and a painful object. It was very, very painful, but it was great. It was fantastic watching the pain. It was so interesting. And he kept on watching, and there was the noting mind and just the pain. No reaction, just the noting. But the pain got worse and more unbearable, more and more excruciating. And suddenly there was a great big explosion. He said there was even a sound, he could hear it. And it was all over. He dropped the atom bomb. And he got up from the sitting and he was soaked in sweat, and he took his hand and he felt the stomach, and the place where the tumor used to protrude. There was a bulge in the stomach, and he found that there was nothing there. He had been completely cured.
Now, the other be Tunia, Tumio Pianwada Caponia, Piangeli Malay, who yokes here on Tabia Zamalo. Shawa Babio Lesser, Poesi, Clamido, Sayela Palo. Pianwabi to Kia Masai, Sia Tabia, Toza, they say on Sanjika, Uma, Bayoga Mamshi, Yaudabi. Pelupia, the owner, Bessiane, good owner. Bessiane, good am, at the other car. At the low Ato Yanga, the other good and Piauda to the Chow, Shimbia Paradama. A good Edika, Jama Lia Pabe. A good yoga job. But there is a sound hard, a good bazaza, a golden daddy, Pongini never told her, even a channel.
When he had completed his meditation practice, and at the end of the retreat, just before he left the Paṇḍitā Sayadaw requested him to keep Sayadaw in touch regarding his illness. You know, when you get back home and you go see your doctor, let me know of his results, of his checkup, of his diagnosis. So he went home. He went to see his doctor, went for a checkup. And the doctor was really very surprised to see that his chronic ailment, his chronic gastric troubles and his tumor had completely disappeared. There was not a sign at all. What happened? He asked. Which doctor did you go to? How did you get it cured? And he said, well, I didn't really see the doctor. I went to the Paṇḍitā and then meditated. And it was just mindfulness, you know. I was watching and then it exploded and everything was... and everything was over. It was very well.
And so
that yogi was very lucky. For those 20 years that he was suffering from that chronic gastric disease, he had to observe a very strict diet. He had to exercise extreme caution with regard to the food that he could eat. But after his meditation, it was really freedom for him. He could just eat anything without having to pick and choose. In fact, up to this day, he is still very much alive and in good health. As for the doctor, he was very convinced, and eventually he too became a yogi.
ဒီပြင်တရားအထုတ်လို့ယောဂပြောက်တာတွေလည်းအများကြီးရှိပါသေးတယ်အဆုတ်နာယောဂပြောက်သွားတာတွေနှလုံးယောဂတော်တော်လေးတက်တာပြီးတော့ပြောင်းငိမ့်တော့အခုအထိမခွဲစိတ်ရဘဲနဲ့တက်တာနေတာ15နှစ်လောက်ရှိသွားပါပြီဆရာကခွဲစိတ်မယ်လို့ပြောထားတာပြီးတော့အမျိုးသမီးတွေမှာဖြစ်တတ်တဲ့ကင်ဆာယောဂတွေကျူကောင်းကင်ယောဂဆွဲတာတွေအများကြီးပါပဲဒါစိတ်ဝင်စားစရာတွေအများကြီးရှိပါတယ်ဘုန်းကြီးအဲ့ဒါတွေလျှောက်ပြောကိုယ်နေမှာမဟုတ်တော့ဘူးပြီးတော့ဒီတရားအထုတ်လို့ရှိရင်တရားကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပေါ်တဲ့ဝေဒနာတွေမဟုတ်ဘဲနဲ့ငကောကငုတ်နေတဲ့ဝေဒနာတွေစိတ်ကူးလုံးပြောင်းနေတဲ့ဝေဒနာတွေလည်းပဲပျောက်သွားတတ်တယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေဘုန်းကြီးကပြောတာပါပဲတခုတော့ဘုန်းကြီးစိတ်ထဲမှာတော့တန်တရားဖြစ်နေတယ်သတိပဋ္ဌာန်တကူနဲ့ယောဂဝေဒနာအမျိုးမျိုးတွေပျောက်နိုင်တယ်ဆိုတာတော့ဟုတ်တယ် chronic ယောဂတွေပေါ့လေထူးထူးခြားခြားပျောက်သွားတယ်ဆိုတာဟုတ်တယ် chronic ယောဂီတွေသတိပဋ္ဌာန်တရားနဲ့ပျောက်မှပျောက်နိုင်မှာမလားဆိုတော့တခါတခါတန်တရားဖြစ်နေတယ်
အဆုတ်လည်း lungs အဆုတ်
TV
Through his experience as a teacher, as a meditation teacher, Sayadaw has come across innumerable cases of people who have recovered from illnesses such as tuberculosis, from heart trouble, from chronic headaches, and even cancer. And a wide variety of various chronic ailments, as well as injuries that were sustained at a very early age. And all of these cases are actually accounts of people who have sought refuge in meditation and come to meditate this Satipatthana system of meditation, and through their practice have gone through tremendous suffering and unbearable pain, but have exercised the greatest degree of perseverance, patience, and courageous effort in confronting them, and therefore have been very successful in curing themselves of some of these ailments, some of which were even declared incurable by some doctors. If Sayadaw were to continue talking about such cases, it is doubtful if he will ever finish this talk. So the point that he's trying to make is that you should not be discouraged by painful sensations that occur in your body, which may be due to any illness that you are suffering from, or any past chronic ailments, or early injuries which you have sustained in childhood. But to have faith, and to exercise the greatest perseverance, patience, and courageous effort to handle them, to look into them, so that you can understand your true nature, so that you can overcome them. However, Sayadaw has a little doubt though. Although the practice of Satipatthana meditation has been able to bring about almost miraculous recovery from the ailments that we talked about, from various diseases, from chronic ailments. Sayadaw wonders whether it will be as effective in curing chronic yogis.
Bē lō pyaw de lē, bā jaung pyaw de lē soတဲ့အကြောင်းကိုတော့ဘုဇင်တရားကိုဟောတဲ့အခါမျိုးကြမှာစာရွေးနဲ့လက်တွေ့ရှင်းပြီးတော့ပြပါဦးမယ်ဒီနေ့တော့ဒါပဲတော်ကြပါဦးစို့
You may be wondering what is the cause for such a miraculous recovery. What is the reason behind it? Why do chronic ailments suddenly get cured to the practice of Satipatthana meditation? This is an interesting subject which the Sayadaw will deal with when he talks about the factors of enlightenment. For tonight, however, this will be all.